Hey everybody, welcome to Canadian Mortgage Hangout TV. My name is Gordon McCallum, and we've got Jackson, Rob, and Scott, along with our guest today, Christine Buman from Prince George. How are things in Prince George, Christine?
Things are great in Prince George, actually. It's a really hot market right now, so it's been really, really busy. It's been great. And it's warm.
Well, that beats our weather. We've got Vancouver weather here right now. It's rainy and kind of dreary. So anyway, nice to have you on the show. We're a big fan of all the people that we know in Prince George, of which you are the third. Yeah, it seems like a pretty dominant broker market in Prince George. You guys, at least on Twitter.
Doesn't seem that way. It's funny you say that because there are probably between 12 and 14 licensed brokers in Prince George. For a population of around 80, 90,000, we have a very, very low presence. But, I mean, we're all great.
Oh, that means just more demand for the ones who are established, so that's good. Good for you. Gary Morris, if you're watching, this is a young woman who's with Dominion Lending, if I'm not mistaken.
Verico.
What? Were you with Dominion?
You're thinking Jacqueline Baker. You're thinking Jacqueline Baker, Gord, from Vancouver.
Oh, man. I've been embarrassing myself nonstop today, so there's another one. Not that there's anything wrong with DLC, but I apologize for getting that wrong. I thought you were with DLC for some reason. Were you ever with DLC?
Never. Always been with Verico. Verico Premium Mortgage.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Thanks for setting the record straight. So for Colin Dreyer, or one of the other Dryers, or somebody else out there, send this girl a banner so she can represent on the show like Rob and Scott do. She's well deserving of it. Does a lot of social media stuff. You can follow her on Twitter at @cbuman. Can you spell that for us? Buemann.
That's right.
With the C in front of it. So, gentlemen, how are things in your neck of the woods? Scott, what's new in Vancouver?
Not bad. Keeping busy, that's for sure. That's all I can do.
Okay.
Busy. Yeah, consistently, nothing crazy, but
Yeah.
the deals are keeping us busy, which is nice. This Robin is line. I'm getting over a cold. My voice, if I start coughing and hacking, I've had a cough for about 2 weeks now. It's driving me crazy.
I'm just getting one, actually. My germ ball kids gave me a sore throat the other day, and then it turned into a runny nose, and now I got the chest cough this morning. This morning, I slept right through. I had 3 guests scheduled to join me at my breakfast meeting at 7 a.m. this morning, and I woke up at 10 after 7. So that was not a good way to start the day. But
So does that make you a terrible person?
I felt like a terrible person. I felt
good.
much. I did the walk of shame. I walked in. I couldn't even eat breakfast because they were in the middle of their conversation, and it was very awkward and unfortunate. But I did learn something really important, which is you can actually get ready, including showered. No, I didn't shave. Showered, teeth brushed, in your clothes, out the door in 4 minutes. It is possible. So.
I have partaken in that as well. I have done that as well. It's amazing what you can do when you wake up late and you look at the clock and you're like, oh, good, I have to be a half an hour away in 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And magically teleport yourself to that location.
And doing 130 kilometers an hour down the highway is still not fast enough, but it's helpful. Jax, you're back in Regina at the moment. What's on your schedule these days?
My schedule is completely open as my wife is about to deliver our 4th child. Fergus. We're having a Fergus show up. Basically, all we got to do is just, head to the hospital as soon as the water breaks, and then baby will show up. So I'm staying with my parents, and my sister and brother-in-law live here, so let's just say it's a full house, and it's kind of fun. But no, Regina's good, seeing some people. I've got my house on the market. I've had my house on the market for about 3 months, and it's not really moving. And it's kind of one of those things where I'm wondering what I should be doing. Christine, you said you're in a hot market. Edmonton seems like a hot market. I'm kind of in what all of the real estate agents are saying is a hot market, but the house isn't moving. And I'm trying to figure out what to do. So I thought I'd bring that up for discussion. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to move into some of these conversation about as a mortgage broker, do I give real estate advice? How do we handle a real estate agent if they're giving mortgage advice? What happens if you go to a lawyer and the lawyer says, "Oh, I wouldn't work with a mortgage broker"? You know, the whole kind of professional ethics thing is what I'm working through right now. And you know, how do we have that conversation with other professionals? And I thought throwing that to Christine and talking about that might be fun today.
Well, let's do that. Let's do that. And I would go. I'd like to just back it up one step, though, and let's talk about. I'd like to hear from the other brokers on the panel today. By the way, I'd like to hear from all the brokers on Twitter as well who are watching this live. If you want to, you can follow us on hashtag CMHTV on Twitter. Send us your questions. Talk to Jackson. Talk to Scott at SDD or at Tilted Broker or at the Rob Campbell. Send us your questions. We'd love to talk about them on the air. But this brings up a really interesting point: is what has your experience been with realtors, and what do you, as a mortgage broker, admire about realtors or notice about realtors, especially the ones who are listing homes? What do they do really well to market a property, or do they? And what sets some of them apart from others in terms of being able to market a property? Because that's a conversation we've had internally. Christine, do you have? Would you say that there's a big differentiation point with some of the realtors in your market in terms of how they market properties, or do they all just sort of list them and hope?
I think we're a little behind the times sometimes in Prince George. So we see some realtors that will do the YouTube videos, or that'll do a little bit of social media marketing, but I think, to be honest, the bulk majority of them will just sort of list it. In a market that we're in right now, I would say at least 50% of the deals that I'm doing aren't even hitting MLS, because there's such a demand. So I don't know if our market would be the same as others. We're literally waiting for the MLS sheet. We're literally waiting for it to post on MLS just to be able to send it to the lender, because it's one realtor saying to the other, "Hey, I've got a listing coming up." So I guess in that respect, connections that they have. One of the best realtors that I work with is very well known and very well respected in the community. So he has many other realtors who will come to him and say, "Hey, listen, I've got a buyer for a house, 300,000. You know, if you have a listing coming up." So he can just have them come in even prior to going through the listing process.
Okay. Well, and then you bring up an excellent point, because it really is market dependent, I suppose. Why would a realtor in a market like that, or in Calgary or Edmonton right now, spend a bunch of money putting together a fancy video package and marketing brochures and print stuff and all kinds of flowery stuff that costs money and time when they don't need to? Because really the buyer's agents are lined up. I spoke with a realtor in Calgary this morning just before the show, and she said that, you know, that of all the deals that she's worked on so far the first half of the year, only 3 of them were not in multiple offer situations. So I guess you don't have to market a property in a market like this. Jackson, you know, regardless of what the people in your neck of the woods are saying, I think that the market data I've seen says that the market is cooling a little bit in Regina. Maybe, I don't know that prices are necessarily falling quickly or anything, but there seems to be a fair bit of supply out there. Is that true from your experience?
Yeah, when we started, there were 700 listings on the market, so we priced it accordingly. I thought we were pricing it aggressively, and you know, we could have probably come down a little bit, but hey, there was nothing there, and we've gone from 700 to 1,300. Real estate agents that I've talked to in Regina consider 1,000 a balanced market. So we're at 1,300, so we're now at a buyer's market, and you know, what do? Do you just drop the price? I mean, okay. You know, I kind of look at this from our client perspective as well. You know, what's the typical client going to do? Okay, well, I'm going to start asking the realtor to have open houses. We all know open houses aren't there to sell the house. They're there for the realtors to pick up more deals. You know, they use your house to pick up more deals. So I'm in this spot like, well, what do I do? I'm in a really kind of, we're dealing with a house that's 2 years old, so we're still competing with new builds on the same house. We really haven't done much to it. So, you know, we were living there, it was staged for 2 months, and now it's vacant. So it's okay, now do we pay for the staging? Like, all of these questions, I have considerably more sympathy for people that are going through the home buying process, the home selling process, because, you know, as professionals, we just work in it. It becomes our wheelhouse. But the second we have to step out of it and say, oh, this is the stress they're actually dealing with, you're getting a lot more of a loving, caring Jackson the next time I deal with a mortgage client who's stressed out, because it's like, I start to get it, because, I mean, I'm carrying basically 2 mortgages right now. So what do you do? And, you know, I've been talking with my real estate agent, and she's had some realtor opens, she's had some people coming through the house and, you know, getting feedback. And that's the other thing. All of the feedback we're getting from everybody who shows the house, great house, priced appropriately, just not for my clients.
Yeah, interesting.
What do you do?
Guys, have you, maybe I'll put this out to Scott and Rob. I know when I was a mortgage broker for about 3 years before I bought my first place. And yeah, it was a real eye-opener. I suddenly felt, I felt those nerves, I felt that uncertainty, even though I was the one working on the file. I knew I qualified, I knew I had this, I knew I had that, but there was still a lot more nervousness around it than I expected. So have you guys experienced that yourselves? Have you gone through it maybe before or after becoming a broker? Or did it change your perspective at all as part of the process?
Yeah, I'll jump in there. For myself, I mean, first time I purchased was long before 5 years, 6 years before I became a broker. So, but I remember that first time. It's a terrible. Not that it was a bad experience. It was a great experience, but it's definitely stressful because you're just handing that deposit check over for the first time is stressful enough, because it's a big chunk of money, right? When you're saving this stuff up, and it's everything went through without a hitch. There's no problem. I used a broker to actually buy the first place, and it went through perfectly, but it's still stressful. So, but I agree with you there. When you're out of because we're so involved in the process of it, we do we're doing so many deals all the time. I've had this discussion with my business partner, and you kind of forget about how stressful it is, because we know everything's going to be fine, but sometimes the clients don't see it the same way, and so we're trying to do a bit better job at communicating and making sure we're staying in the loop with them.
Hey, Scott, just had a thought. Can you take your glasses off for a sec?
I can't see a thing.
Okay, that's fine. Now unbutton your top shirt button. No, leave the glasses off.
What's going on? Nope.
Yeah, come on, you got to do it. Does anybody else think you look like the Trivago guy right now?
Yes, my wife and I talk about that all the time. We actually have a guy in Moose Jaw that we know on Instagram who we've actually put pictures side by side and said, you mix these two together and they are the Trivago guy.
I think I need a bit more hair on my head.
You need to look like you've been on a bender for about a week. And
you can't be wearing a belt. Have you noticed the guy's not wearing a belt? What kind of clown has his shirt tucked into his pants and is not wearing a belt?
I seriously think that they had an open audition for these tryouts in LA, and this guy wandered into it from the alley and happened to have, really good actor training, and he's been down and out for his whole life, and he won the deal. He got the deal, and they're like, we start now. And he's like, oh, okay, let's go. And then he's a good voice guy, but man, he seriously looked like they brought him. No offense.
You nailed it.
That's a good compliment. Thanks, Gordon.
Anyway, Rob, what was your? Did you have any extra kind of compassion for your clients, having gone through the home buying process yourself and that kind of thing, or what's your experience been?
Yeah, I'm in pretty much the same boat as Scotty Boy. Bought our house 10 years ago, well before I was in this industry. So it's quite a while ago to remember, but I do remember it being a little bit stressful, because you're trusting the people that are working for you, your lawyer and your realtor, and my phone's ringing. That's great.
It's a hot internet lead.
Yeah, hot leads. I'm just going to mute that. No, I do remember it, and I remember it being pretty stressful. And I remember the day we got the keys, and it all kind of set in. It's just like having your first child. You bring your child home, and you're like, okay, now what? I don't know what I'm doing. What do we do? So yeah, I guess, but Scott's right. We do this Jackson, 4 kids later. Scott's right. We do this every day, that we're kind of immune to it, right? It's not a big deal to us anymore. But it's interesting to hear Jackson say it is kind of a big deal, because he's personally going through it, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, I wonder if that's something that we all need to be reminded of from time to time, and remember to communicate with people. I think we feel like with our clients, no news is bad news. It's almost like they assume. Do you find that, Christine, where if somebody hasn't, even if you feel like you're communicating at a really effective level and you're telling them everything they need to know and you're telling them everything as it comes in, sometimes people, whether it's the client, sometimes it's the realtor associated with the file, maybe doesn't feel as though they've got the information they want or the comfort level that they need. Have you run into situations like that, Kristen?
For sure, and actually I started a policy a few years ago that I send a daily update every day to every realtor on every file I'm working with at the end of the day, and I send an update to the client as well, because I couldn't foster all the phone calls from the realtors saying, what's going on with my file, I submitted it last night, it was just too much. So now I've sort of set the standard that at the end of the day, before I go home, I will post them an update, even if it's just, hey, didn't hear back from the lender today, should hear back tomorrow. And that's created a huge, referral source for me. And for my clients, I think that communication is really important too. Again, just going back, I bought my first house 10 years ago too, and I purchased several rental properties and stuff in the meantime. But since I became a broker, I've purchased one home, and I did really find the pressure. Again, I was doing my own mortgage. I knew it was going to go through. I had a short time frame for subject removal, but I think just having that sympathy for the clients, it's important to keep that communication there.
How did you qualify to buy your first home when you were 14?
Well, I wish that I was that young. I bought my first home when I was 19.
Okay,
And,
well, that's good. Pretty young. That's good. Yeah. We maybe as brokers we may need to over communicate based on our expectations because certain clients have higher expectations. Have you ever had anybody tell you you're telling them too much?
Absolutely, yeah. And I've had realtors say, you know what, you don't need to send them to me. And I say, you know what, it's fine. I'll just keep sending them typically. I haven't had much bad response. More often than not, I get a better response. But I believe in giving my clients as much information as possible so they can make their own educated decisions. So even at my first appointment, I've got a first-time buyer package that I go through with them. It takes usually 20, 30 minutes, and I go over debt ratios, how credit scores are determined, everything, so that when I can call them and say, listen, your TDS is 43.9, they know what I'm talking about, and I feel like they're comfortable throughout the process. So that's the thing for me is knowledge is power, and I really try and give my clients as much knowledge as possible.
Okay, well, that's good to know. That's good to know. Was there anything anybody else wanted to cover before we shift gears? I wanted to talk a little bit about some of these more recent CMHC changes. It's a resounding no, or a resounding yes. We did cover it. Okay, well, we covered everything up. Guys and gal, tell me a little bit. Scott, I want to hear from you on the CMHC changes. And whether or not you feel like they're justified. And for those watching who haven't been aware of it, they're making some changes to, well, it's hard to keep up actually. There's been sort of a constant stream of changes lately.
All released on Friday afternoons, by the way. Have you noticed that? When nobody can talk about it, it's kind of like Friday afternoon at 3. That's when they announce things. Anyways.
So, well, the interesting, I'll just provide the quote here that the new CEO Evan Siddell, I hope I pronounced that right, was talking to the Globe and Mail and said that the CMHC's focus will be on helping people to buy the homes they need as opposed to the homes they want. But let me throw this out. Who is the government to tell me what I need or what I want? Who decides that? Is there a department of evaluation out there that goes, yeah, you need that house, but not that one? Sorry.
No, there's no. No. You're answering your own question, Goriel. You know.
Well, not everybody will agree with me, Rob. Not everybody will see it that way. Others may think that Big Brother is absolutely in charge and should dictate to everybody else.
They are safeguarding themselves against the apocalypse. That's what they're doing, just like many lenders are doing. And it seems like a daily basis that I'm calling Gord or I'm calling Scotty or I'm calling my brokerage and going, what am I missing here? I got a client who's got $200,000 a year salary. They've got assets in the bank, but they want to do this, and it can't be done. Where is that? I hate using this term, but where is that common sense lending? You know, but I guess, you know, CMHC is going to put the squeeze on what we're looking for now for clients, apparently, and they're also going to put the squeeze on monolines. That's another thing that I saw Rob McLister tweeting about, is like how much are these monolines going to get squeezed? Now that's why all these people are going for the bank status, deposit-taking bank status, because they see it coming. They're not stupid. They see it coming. It's coming.
Yeah, that's a real concern, and that's a Rob retweeted something. I asked a question because I wasn't really sure, but my sense of it is that if there is a reduction in taxpayer risk to this, a lot of it is more for the newspapers, get the newspapers off CMHC's back and get the public satiated to the point where they forget about it and move on to some other cause. But it just seems to me like any sort of negligible risk reduction for the taxpayer as a result of this is only going to be offset by an increase in costs because of the lack of competition. So if monolines get hurt, we lose more lenders. If we have less competition, or if that cost of funds, really I feel like in the background, so many of these changes have been a result of banks lobbying to level the playing field because they were getting their asses, pardon the expression, handed to them by monolines for so long. They were losing market share and they wanted it to stop. Personal opinion, a little bit of a tinfoil hat kind of.
I second that tinfoil hat opinion. I totally second that. You can't deny that. You can't deny 5 or 6 men or women in a boardroom with the government going, so this is how we feel this should be.
Well, and they've had that oligopoly for so long. They've had the top 5 or 6 banks. They've had a lot of market power. They've had the dominant market share. They haven't had to compete.
Note to self, Google oligopoly. What the heck was that word?
Well, it means like not a monopoly, but a very small group of companies that sort of, you know.
Like the Pentaveret out of So I Married a Taxman.
At the secret country mansion in Colorado.
The Colonel, the Queen. Oh, with your beady little eyes.
Scott, let me hear. Scott, you're often the voice of reason on this show. I want to hear from a more moderate point of view. Do you think am I crazy here? Is it too much of a conspiracy theory, or do you think?
No, not crazy. It's a political move. It is what it is, right? And we can complain about it. We can, but you just got to adapt, and it's the way it is. You got to get to know obviously what CMHC isn't doing. We can switch. We still thankfully do have other choices with insurers to request. So I don't know about you guys. We're getting not better approvals, quicker approvals, and easier approvals through the other insurers, anyways. So you just got to work with it.
Well, there you go, and that maybe that's in fact I believe in the article on these most recent CMHC changes, they said flat out, we want the private insurers to take on more of the risk. So if you haven't already purchased Genworth stock or a Canada Guarantee, can you even buy as Canada Guarantee Public? If you can, buy shares now if it's not too late, because those companies are due for some growth, because the demand is still there as far as I can see for housing in Canada. People are not going to stop.
And from a business standpoint, honestly, why? And this is my completely uneducated assumption and statement, but sitting in Canada Guarantee or Genworth's shoes, why wouldn't you be going, oh, mama, let's crank this up, right? Let the government be restrictive. Okay, if they're going to be restrictive with CMHC, that's fine. If it's across the board, then that makes it a little tricky. But if it's completely optional to those other insurers, I'd be like, guys, let's just keep cranking away here.
Well, that's not what happens.
Go ahead, Jackson.
That's not what happens. The other insurers follow suit on almost everything. One change here, let's follow suit. I think this. Some of these recent changes is the first time that they haven't, with the second property and the insured second property. That's one of the first times I can remember that they haven't just completely followed suit. To me, it doesn't matter which one you go to. They're all the same. Now, moving forward, would I like to see them change? Absolutely. I'd love to see some differentiation. I'd love to see some unique products that a certain insurer has an appetite for, and then partnered with the right lender, which allows us to do our job, which is giving our clients choice. Right now, I feel Gord's right. It's just kind of like, yeah, although there's the oligopoly or whatever you said. Yeah, that I think it's a Russian word. Anyways, you got the big banks. Yeah, they're running it there. It's the same in our world. All the lenders offer the same products. We're not special. It's who you get a good relationship with. Anyways, Christine should talk more.
Well, I think it's going to affect two things in the broker industry. I think it's going to affect customer loyalty. And the reason I say that is I met with the Genworth manager a few weeks ago, and his big point was it's about how you package it. So if you submit the deal to Genworth or say CMHC, whoever, and then they go down the street to XYZ Mortgages and they submit it differently, now they're going to look at both of the files and say, well, what are the discrepancies, right? So all it takes is maybe you're having one loan paid out or whatever, and if they're approving you, well, and then they go get a decline from somewhere else, it could affect their overall approval, right? And
I've had that happen on a deal.
You know how they do it in insurance? Once it's the first submission in wins. Like you can't actually in the general insurance industry, if we submit a file to P-Sales Insurance and then the client shops us and goes to a broker down the road and they also submitted to P-Sales Insurance, that broker is blocked from submitting the file. They just can't unless the client, I don't know, I suppose the client can write a letter. Have you run it? Some of our lenders do some of that, I think, but I don't know that the insurers have a policy on that. Have you run into that, Christine?
It was just one thing that Lance had specifically talked to me about, saying that if it already has been declined, or if they've already seen it from one broker, that it will be an issue if it's submitted again. So I personally haven't had an issue, but that was one point that he really focused on.
Robbie, what do you think?
I've had that happen on a deal. Sorry, jumping in there. It was an application that had been sent in. I was the second person, and no, sorry, I was the first person, but it went in after, and then of course they find out they get another application, all the docs up front, blah 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 blah. It really ties up the file.
Yeah, it sure can.
And the client almost killed their own deal, basically.
And that's maybe something else we need to inform people of is whatever you do, like, if you want this to go ahead and you want this to go well, don't do that because you're going to complicate things and raise questions about the file with the insurers. Christine, one thing I wanted to get, we have a lot of brokers who watch the show who are newer brokers. They haven't been doing it a long time. They maybe want a little bit of a perspective from somebody who's been doing this a while. I wanted to know from you, what, if you remember, what has surprised you about being a mortgage broker that maybe you didn't expect before you got into the business? Were things that were explained to you prior to entering the business accurate, or did you find that there were some myths out there about what was involved? Is it harder? Is it easier? Tell me about your experience that way as a newer broker a few years ago.
Well, I think I was prepared because I had spoke to several other brokers about the challenges, and a colleague of mine, Nathan, who sort of spoke to me about getting into the business, he said, you know what, expect not to make any money at all for the first 6 to 12 months. So I worked well, I did my course, and I was prepared for that, but I know we see a lot of brokers coming in and out of the industry, and I think that's probably the biggest, surprise is the phone doesn't just ring. You have to go out there and get the business. And I was also really fortunate enough to have a really, really involved managing broker. So in the beginning, we did weekly meetings, and we focused more on the business building side because, you can learn how to do a mortgage, right? And again, it's just about learning different lender policies, insurer policies, but the growing of the business was probably the most important thing that he would teach us. So the biggest thing for me was I did 5 face-to-face meetings a week, and I did 2 handwritten thank you cards a day. So every opportunity that I had, I was looking for someone to just go for coffee with me, and just so I could put it on my piece of paper. So when I met with my managing broker, I would say, yeah, I've had that face-to-face. And also in the beginning, I didn't have a family, so that was a little little different. I would work all week, and then Sundays I would go around with coffee and 2 business cards, and I met every realtor in town, introduced myself. Now things have changed a little bit. I'm not going to open houses, but but it was a good opportunity as well.
Yeah, it does change when you have a family, doesn't it? I'm glad I started before I started my family as well, because I don't think I would have been able to build the business the same way. Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, I mean that's amazing, and good on you, Christine, for doing that, because it's the exact perfect thing to do. I got into this business with a 2.5-year-old and a newborn, like literally newborn, like a couple months old, as I got in this business. So it was hard. It was very, very hard to be able to get out of the house, go do what I could try to do, and still be a good husband and dad with these young kids at home. So hard. But yeah, I totally agree with you. Like your first 6 months, maybe even your first year, if you have no previous experience in a financial institution or a database that you're bringing, you're screwed. And people need to tell new agents this. They have to be very honest with them. You have to have a good cushion of money and do exactly what Christine just said, because I couldn't have said it anymore. Old school, face-to-face, be kind, do the right thing, meet people, send out cards, follow up. Just do that. Do it. It seems like it's stupid and old school, but for a guy that didn't do that at the beginning, I could totally, if I could turn back time, if I could find a way, little song reference for you, Christine, I would totally do what Christine did. Brilliant, good,
and
great.
I would be asking questions. That was a big thing for me. I would meet with realtors and I would say, "What do you look for in a broker?" Just being humble at the beginning, and just saying, "What can brokers do to gain your business?" And the biggest thing that every realtor would say was communication. So that's when I started the daily updates. And it sounds so silly, but I've had numerous realtors who wouldn't even give me the time of day in the beginning, and now they're calling me saying, "Hey, can you do this deal for me?" It's been a huge advantage for me.
Christine, be honest now. I don't think any of your realtors are watching the show, unless they are, in which case we'd like to say hi to all of Christine's realtors in Prince George. Hi, how are you? But be honest, I'd like to know, do your realtors send you good deals, or do they only send you stuff that gets turned down at the bank?
In the beginning,
decide whether or not to answer them.
In the beginning, I think that realtors will sort of test the ground. So they'll send you the declines, they'll send you the creative stuff, But I do have a handful of realtors, yeah, creative, where you're like, no down payment, no credit, perfect. But I do have one realtor in particular who every deal, he's been in the industry for over 20 years, but every deal he sends me, he's pre-qualified. They have a live offer in place, and they all go through, and they're awesome clients. And he sends them to me because we have such a great relationship. So as soon as he won't try and pull from another broker or anything. But there are a few but not many, that will send me very qualified, and they're always very happy. I trust him as a realtor. I trust that they're being explained the process, that there's nothing shady going on. So they're few and far between, but I think there are other realtors out there that will really. And for him, he's knowing he's going to get the communication every day, and that I'm going to get deals done that other people can't do. Oh.
Excuse me. That's good. It's good to hear. I think that's something that mortgage brokers. It sounds like you had somebody tell you the truth, which unfortunately, in my position as a broker owner, I sometimes have applicants who come in and they think within the first 3 weeks they're going to be writing mortgages on the beach in Mexico like Scott Dawson, and and have just an easy time of it. But you're right. In most people it takes a while to earn a living in this business. I think also the expectations that I'll just go and talk to every realtor and they're going to be amazed to talk to me like they've never met another mortgage broker. I remember going to a Christmas party, and I even donated a prize to the Edmonton Real Estate Board's Christmas function, and I remember standing in line. I've never felt quite so much like a leper, except maybe at a high school dance or something like that. I was trying to get somebody's attention, but I was standing in line for a drink at the bar, and the woman in front of me turned around and said hi and shook my hand and said, and who are you with? And I said, oh, I'm Gord. I have a mortgage brokerage called First Foundation. She turned right back around. She was just like, mortgage broker, eh? I'm not going to talk to you. So
we are the plague. You're not the only one. I get this on a daily basis. Oh, especially at those events. Oh yeah, what real estate company are you with? Oh no, I'm not a realtor. I'm a mortgage broker.
Yeah. Yep.
And I've gotten so good at it now of calling people on that response. Case in point, there was a golf tournament here a week ago with the local real estate board. I may or may not have thrown a Royal Bank sign into the bush. True story. And the Royal Bank rep that was there, she's very nice. She said, "Oh, who are you?" And one of the realtors there said, "Oh, you haven't met Rob? He's a mortgage broker." Like a light switch went off. She just went, "Oh." And I called her on it. I said, "Oh, whoa, are you okay? Are we big kids or are we little kids? Like, you're just gonna keep it clean?" Yeah, whatever.
I've also found financial advisors is gonna, instead of focusing on the realtors, I work in a financial planning office. I work at Raymond James, so I think they get it a little more. And refinances are so much easier when you don't have a time frame, and when at the end of the day, the best case scenario, you've saved them money, they're in a better position. Worst case scenario, they're in the same boat. So there's less stress typically, and I really enjoy working with financial planners.
Well, that you make a very good point there too, because they don't feel like you're a competitive threat necessarily unless they're selling a lot of Manulife ones or something like that. But those clients
crushing national bank deals.
Yeah, well, they can't do them out here, but those clients qualify. You're not working with a financial planner in most cases, and giving them money to invest if your credit's trashed because you've got other priorities. So that's a good thought. Well, we've got a bit over time, but it's always more fun when we're having a good conversation. So Christine, you're welcome back anytime. This is a lot of fun. It's even more fun talking with you in person than just on Twitter. So we really appreciate your perspective today, and nice to have you on the show.
Speed round.
Yes. Good call, Rob. Okay, we're going to do, just to wrap up, we're going to put you on the spot over there, Christine, and I'm going to give you a speed round. Scotty, are you ready, or does Rob, do you want to start? Okay, Rob, start us off. I'll finish.
Okay, you are cast away on a deserted island, and you can only take an iPod with one album to listen to for the rest of your days. What's the album?
Rolling Stones.
Very good. Any Rolling Stones album, or one in particular?
And probably a variety of maybe a mixed CD of Rolling Stones.
Very good.
Best of.
Pardon me?
Oh, my turn now. Oh, sorry, a best of the Rolling Stones. So we've been hearing a lot of problems with hippies saying they don't like the pipeline going through BC. How do you feel about this?
Wow, controversial. I am pro pipeline.
Yes!
I can't. You know what? I'm really interested to find out. BC already has so many pipelines. That's a whole other show.
That is a whole other show. Did you guys know that the last pipeline built from Alberta to the West Coast was in like 50 years ago? 50. It's crazy. Anyway, good. Christine, you're welcome back every week now. Go ahead, Scott.
Coffee or tea?
Oh, coffee for sure.
Excellent. Okay, we can send you a mug then.
I have one.
Oh yeah. Okay. Okay, Christine. Last question. You, Michelle Moore, Jamie Campbell.
Cunningham.
Cunningham. Thank you. Sorry, Jamie. Jamie Cunningham. All in a room. Fight to the death. Who emerges victorious?
Me, obviously.
Okay.
Yes.
Me, then Michelle, and Jamie. No, Jamie's pretty tough.
All right.
We're all good friends.
But they're all very nice, so we wouldn't make you fight to the death. Good.
We're good friends.
Thanks again for being on the show, and thanks to my colleagues for always making it fun, entertaining, and informative. I hope you've enjoyed watching the show. Tune in every week, same time, 1 p.m. Eastern, 11 wherever we are, and 10 where Scott is for the show. Or you can watch it, repeat. All the archives are at CanadianMortgageHangout.tv. Goodbye.
Goodbye.